everyone, Galaxy Wolf with a new video. Today we're going to be reading chapter 3 and 4 of Lovelorn by Sunflower Oil Tea. Here's the video. Chapter 3, Giving Yourself Food Poisoning is the Way to Go. The perfect idea came to Raphael during his walk back to his dorm, his notes for Cruel's class sitting heavy in his bag as his gears turned. Earlier in class they went over a variety of poisonous plants and their side effects, and that's when the plan hit him. While he couldn't eat the plants safely, he could eat something that would have similar effects. And that's how he found himself in the Diasomnia kitchens, knowing that anyone and everyone who could catch him or try to stop him had after-school clubs. So, with a deep breath he opened the shared fridge, and there and behold laid the most important part of his plan. Lilia Van Rij's cooking. It was infamous in itself, and the idea of putting it in his body seemed like the worst and best idea ever. Raphael looked around a few times before taking a little bit of it and putting it in his bag, careful not to leave evidence of his crime before closing the fridge door, and went straight to his room. Locking the door behind him, he finally took a deep breath, the nerves of being caught gone the moment he shut his door. With a sigh he carefully placed his bag on his desk and undid his shirt sleeve, letting Bartok free. The small bat flew out of his sleeve and circled around the room before landing on the dark wood of the desk. Pulling out his desk chair and sitting down, Raphael reached forward and scratched Bartok under the chin. Quite the first day, huh, Bartok? I'll say, if it was up to me, I'll give those brats a taste of their own medicine. I'd give them a ha, and a hi-ya, and then a ooh-wah, and I'd kick them, a small voice called out, and Raphael chuckled. Why am I not surprised you'd say that? Raphael stopped what he was saying, sitting up in his chair quickly, looking down at Bartok with wide golden eyes. What? Is there something wrong? Wait, did you just answer me back? You can understand me, Bartok squeaked out, pink eyes wide. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Raphael laughed, pushing his curly brown hair out of his face. I take it it's not normal for people to speak back. Normal, as if anyone wants to hear what a bat's got to say. Out of all the animal languages, people learn bat the least. Bartok muttered the last part with an offended huff. Raphael just smiles and picks his bat familiar up with gentle hands. Well, I'm not most people, now am I? Obviously, after all, who in their right mind talks to a bat? Raphael laughed some more, placing Bartok on his shoulder. So what are you planning to do with that weird stuff you took from the fridge? Bartok, how does the idea of faking ill sound? Why do I not like the sound of this? Bartok muttered, weariness strong in his voice. I mean, the plan does require me to eat this, and I know the perfect time to do so. Raphael pushed himself out of his chair, the grin on his face a little crazed. And when is that? Bartok squeaked, clinging tightly to the human's shoulder. First of all, how good would you say your acting skills are? I'd say I'm a pretty good actor. Wait, why? We're going to a party tonight, my dear batty friend. Raphael pushed open his wardrobe with a dramatic flair. A party? Ooh, I could teach you the latest dance step. It starts with, like, a, whoa, and then you get really crazy with the hips. It's fun. Bartok perked up before a look of confusion became clear. Wait, I'm confused why a party has to do anything with the plan. We're going to Diasomnia's annual welcoming party for all the new first years, and that's when we'll set the stage. After all, who will expect poor old Raphael to do anything spontaneous after word goes out that he is deathly ill? Asterisk. The only downside of the plan was forcing himself to mingle with the other people of his dorm, especially when he seemed to be purposely not invited. The want to just turn tail and go back to the safety of his room and come up with a new plan. But it was a little too late for that now. A bite of Van Rij's cooking under his tongue, and he had already made amends with whatever god might exist. Raphael stood outside the doors leading to the lounge, the sounds of people laughing and talking obvious from where he stood. Taking a deep breath helped him settle into the role he had to play. Remember this, Bartok, when everyone looks down on you, nothing you can do will surprise them. So let's give him a good show. Raphael glanced down before looking back up, masking any emotion on his face with a bored and blank persona. Placing his hands on the doors, he pushed forward with all his strength, letting the doors swing open and bang against the cold stone walls, making them echo and snuff out all conversation. The lounge became deafeningly silent as all eyes glanced up at him. Raphael let his eyes glance across the room broadly, making sure to make eye contact with all whose eyes locked in with him. With a sigh, he stepped into the lounge, his form lax but still holding the strength of a predator on the prowl. He stopped walking when he officially arrived at the center of the crowd, everyone keeping a safe distance from him. How odd to find such a gathering here, especially when I was led to believe that the welcoming party wasn't being held this year. If I didn't know any better, I would think I was purposely not invited. Raphael let his voice ring out and he saw the students who must have lost his invite glances between themselves nervously. Well then, what's with all the grave faces? After all, this is a party for our lucky new first years. Let's not hold back on my accord. Raphael faked his cheer and grabbed a drink, his grin seeming cruel as he raised his glasses before walking away to a dark corner of the room. After a bit of time, the chatter came back like cricket after the storm. Raphael stayed in his dark corner watching for the main characters, and when he saw that they weren't there yet, he smirked into his glass. After all, he placed himself by the door that would lead to them when the time was right. Until the time was right, however, he had to wait. The endless chatter filled the air and Raphael truly just wanted to get this over with. Bartok watched everyone from his shoulder, listening for the important part of the plan to arrive. And when the time was right, Bartok squeaked in Raphael's ear. With a grimace, Raphael moved the food out from under his tongue and used his beverage to wash it down. The effect didn't take place right away, which gave him enough time to slip out the door. However, it seemed like the moment the door softly clicked shut, the effects kicked in, making him stumble and his ears started to ring. Raphael barely had time to grab onto the wall, his breath becoming labored and any color on his face drained completely. He could see Bartok's panicked face before him, but it blurred and he was sure he had lost the strength in his legs and started to drop to the ground. Raphael couldn't hear what was being said or who was saying it. But from the feeling of a warm presence at his back, he knew someone was there to witness his act, and all his efforts weren't in vain. Go grab. Act. Two voices shouted back and forth, but Raphael couldn't hear the words they were saying. Raphael smothered a ragged cough with his hand fasted itself out of his throat, and from the warm and wet sensation it brought with it and the slight red he could see stain his hands, his plan went a little bit better than he originally planned. With a few more coughing fits, Raphael's sense slowly started coming back. The smoothing feeling of someone rubbing circles into his back made him sigh in relief and had him leaning into the comforting touch. Before his mind raced back to him and he flinched before shooting forward and away from the touch. Whoa there, a strong hand reaching forward and steady him, and Raphael didn't have to turn around to see who was with him. After all, who couldn't reorganize a male lead just from the sound of his voice? Chapter 4, Would you look at this? Things go right, or do they? Out of the 4 possible male leads in Diasomnia, to find him in this state, he was almost thankful that it was Silver. The tiered swordsman was not only the most quiet but also someone who probably wouldn't be able to see through his act. With a labored breath, Raphael put some distance between them, glaring at Silver like he was the bane of his existence while he was cheering happily on the inside that his plan had worked. Sorry for the disturbance, I'll be on my way. Raphael started to stand, only to be stopped by a hand grabbing his arm. Wait, Sepik is grabbing my Lilia, please wait till you've seen medical help. You're alive, Bartok squeaked in relief, flinging himself at Raphael's face. Raphael huffed and gently grabbed the bat by the scruff and pulled him away from his face. In a manner of speaking, Raphael told his familiar. Quick, how many thumbs am I holding up? Bartok raised a single wing, flapping it in Raphael's face. Bartok. How many? The bat insists. You only have 1 thumb per wing, Bartok. The answer is obvious. Raphael was cut off by a loud laugh, making him turn his head to glare at the person laughing, only to swear internally at who he saw. There stood a very young-looking man, black, mid-length hair with angled, straight-cut bangs and magenta peekaboo highlights. Deep red eyes stared at Raphael like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. The benevolent smile on his face made Raphael grimace. Vice Prefect Banrouge, Raphael called, a black look on his face like he wasn't just arguing with a bat. Foo foo foo, there is no need for that, we're all members of the same dorm, now then. It's not an everyday occurrence for Sebek to come running for me in a panic. What seems to be the issue? Lilia asked, but it was obvious that he had already noticed the red on the palms of Raphael's hands and the feverish tone of the human's face. It was nothing of great concern, and it was most definitely not enough to have someone send for you in such a panic. Raphael kept calm, meeting Lilia head-on and not avoiding eye contact. You couldn't breathe and you were coughing up blood, how is that not something of concern? Silver asked, and Raphael almost forgot he was there from how silent he was being. Raphael waved his hand lazily, it was just a mild attack, it could have been worse. The father and son duo before him stayed silent, Raphael's words echoing in their minds. Silver was the first to speak again, mild. This has happened before. Raphael tensed up, like he just realized he had let something slip he wasn't supposed to. He clenched his jaw and made sure he was avoiding eye contact now. TCH, it was nothing. Now then, I'll be off now, don't let me ruin your evening. Raphael turned around and speed walked away, this time not letting a call of, wait, stop him. Once he got to the safety of his room he made a show of slamming his door shut behind him just in case. The moment the lock in his door clicked shut he let out a giant sigh. Walking over and flopping on his bed he finally let out the grin that he had to hold back all the way back to his room show. We did it, Bartok. The plan went even better than we expected. Raphael let out a laugh, holding the bat up in the air. Bartok squeaked at the fast movement, blinking down at his human with his large pink eyes before a small gang-filled smile filled out on the bat's face. 3 of the 4 people we needed to find out about my sickness found out, and they most definitely will tell Malleus about what transpired, and then they'll do some snooping. Discover I went to the welcoming party uninvited and then fled unprompted, and the rest of the story they can piece together themselves. Raphael throws Bartok up in the air, excitedly laughing. The bat squeaked at the sudden movement before flying around laughing also. Truly this plan can't go wrong. Asterisk. What Raphael didn't put into consideration was a food tray to be plopped down in front of him during lunch and Silver to sit down across from him, the transparent 0 above his head now a 3. Raphael put his spoon down carefully, his mind racing, you and Silver aren't supposed to meet yet. Despite all the screaming and cursing that was going on in his head, Raphael's face was completely calm. May I ask what you're doing? Raphael asked coldly, picking up his spoon to continue eating to make himself appear unfazed. Eating. What else could I be doing? Silver asked calmly, seemingly unaware of Raphael's inner conflict. Raphael gripped his spoon tightly, a tick mark forming on his forehead. Bartok looked up for where he was eating a tomato. You know, you really should watch your blood pressure. My nephew Izzy just keeled over mid-mango. Stress, it's a killer, and he was a fruit bat. No meat, no blood even. Bartok calmly stated, and Raphael forced himself to relax and ignore the man in front of him. I don't remember you having a bat with you last year. Silver politely said, but Raphael had to hold back from yelling, stop paying attention to me. This is the complete opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. Instead he looked up and glared some more. Just because you didn't see Bartok doesn't mean he wasn't there, after all. It would be unwise for me to have an obvious weakness considering how I am treated. Silver flinched a little and looked down at his food, but Raphael wasn't done. You would think a dorm whose prefect is constantly excluded would be better at inviting people. Especially their own dorm mates. Silver looked like he was slapped at Raphael's words, and even Raphael felt a little bad for what he said. After all, Silver wasn't the one treating Raphael badly. However, he felt some anger towards him for the original Raphael's sake. After all, Silver knew how the original was treated. So did Lilia and Sebek, but none of them did anything to help the struggling youth who truly only needed someone to reach out for him. But nobody did, and he continued to struggle and fight with all he had, so when you came around and was treated better than he was despite not having a drop of magic. The original Raphael couldn't hold it all in anymore. So yes, Silver has done nothing wrong to him personally, but he felt slight satisfaction at the hurt look on his face. Raphael looked away with a sigh and continued to eat his lunch in silence, only stopping when Bartok finished eating his tomato. He collected his stuff quickly, ignoring the look he was getting from the swordsman in front of him and the looks his practically full bowl of soup was getting. Well then, this was a very enlightened conversation, but I will be leaving now. Have a good rest of your day. Alright everyone, that was chapter 3 and 4 of Lovelorn. I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, just in case if anyone's wondering, I'm choosing to use a voice modifier so you can understand the story better.